The reason, honestly, is because I knew nothing about it. I'm embarrassed to say, like, nothing about. And when I say it was what happened during the Reconstruction period after the Civil War.
13 years is a long time to keep something quiet, especially when your life plays out on national television. But what really happened between Dana Bash and her husband? Why did one of CNN's most composed and respected journalists choose to walk away from her marriage after more than a decade? Was it the pressure of the spotlight? The nonstop pace of political news? Or was there something deeper, something that never made it into the headlines? Today, Dana Bash finally speaks out. And for the first time, she's revealing the emotional truth behind her decision. Long before she held court on CNN, Dana Bash was just Dana Schwartz, born on June 15, 1971, in the quiet town of Montvale, New Jersey. Her last name changed, but her roots were always planted in media soil. Her father, Stuart Schwartz, was a senior broadcast producer for ABC News, a man who knew how to shape a story. Her mother, Frances Weinman Schwartz, taught Jewish studies and authored books, making intellectual debate the default dinner table activity. She attended Pascack Hills High School, but her ambitions stretched far beyond her hometown. She learned early on that the news wasn't just something you watched, it was something you built. That belief followed her to college at George Washington University, right in the heart of the political beast. During college, she didn't waste time with just lectures and exams. She interned at NBC, CBS, and CNN, 3 networks, countless departments, and more than a few long days fetching coffee while absorbing everything like a sponge. By the time she graduated in 1993, she wasn't wondering how to get into journalism. She was already halfway in. Fresh out of school, Dana joined CNN in a modest role, just another new name on the weekend production team. It wasn't glamorous. There were no interviews, no makeup rooms, no viral moments. But she kept her head down and her mind sharp. Politics wasn't just her interest, it was her fluency. It wasn't long before CNN noticed. She moved behind the scenes on Capitol Hill, covering the U.S. Senate with the kind of detailed focus most viewers never see. At a time when many producers were content with sound bites and shallow stories, Dana was digging deeper, mapping the maze of congressional strategy, committee meetings, and legislative battles. And she wasn't doing it for clout, she was doing it because she actually cared. That rare combination of passion and precision made her an essential voice within the network, even before she ever appeared on screen. By the time she stepped in front of the camera, her credibility had already been built. Once inside CNN, Dana moved quickly. She had the grit and the patience to handle the most chaotic press cycles without blinking. But here's the twist, unlike many of her male counterparts who thrived on sound bites and ego, Dana thrived on discipline. She wasn't the loudest voice in the newsroom, but she was often the most trusted. That trust earned her the network's most delicate assignments, interviewing sitting presidents, moderating debates, and explaining legislative labyrinths to a nation addicted to push notifications. While viewers saw her poise, what they didn't see was how her personal life kept colliding with her career. Dana didn't chase viral moments or go looking for controversy. Her work earned her reputation. Whether covering the State of the Union, moderating debates, or fact-checking politicians in real time, she wasn't just another anchor reading the news. She was explaining it, unpacking it, making it make sense. And because she had spent so many years behind the scenes, her perspective carried weight. She understood the chaos of Capitol Hill not as an outsider, but as someone who had spent years reading the fine print on budget resolutions and healthcare reform. As her role expanded, so did her visibility. She wasn't just covering political drama, she became one of the few journalists trusted to explain it without sensationalism. In a media landscape addicted to outrage, Dana's steady tone felt almost rebellious. She let the facts do the talking. But behind the professional wins, Dana was juggling something much harder to manage, her personal life. She wasn't just building a career, she was building it while navigating high-profile marriages, divorces, and motherhood. Her first marriage to Jeremy Bash, who later served as chief of staff at the CIA and the Department of Defense in 1998, looked like a political dream team on paper. But real life didn't cooperate. Their demanding careers, non-stop schedules, and high-stakes roles left little space for anything softer. Their lives moved at high speed. Jeremy was navigating classified briefings while Dana was decoding the Senate floor. But what looked polished on paper was unraveling in private. The intense schedules, the non-stop adrenaline, and the political pressure took its toll. By 2007, the marriage was over, quietly, with no public drama, just a statement of fact. 2 careers that had reached the highest echelons but couldn't hold the center. Not long after, Dana's personal life found its way back into the media spotlight, this time, without needing a headline writer. She married CNN anchor John King in 2008, and for a brief moment, it was the ultimate newsroom power couple. Colleagues turned partners, sharing both scripts and a son, Jonah, born in 2011. John King, once a Catholic who converted to Judaism for marriage, had his own rising career to manage. Meanwhile, Dana's own star was only getting brighter. The balancing act became less about love and more about logistics, parenthood, production meetings, and being in two places at once. What most people saw was the polished version, Dana on camera, composed and commanding. What they didn't see was the woman off camera, shuttling between breaking news and school pickups, walking into war rooms and walking out of custody conversations. Still, she didn't retreat. She stayed steady, even as her personal life evolved, sometimes painfully. She rarely spoke about these challenges, choosing instead to let her work speak for itself. But even a shared profession couldn't save what became an increasingly strained relationship. Competing schedules, rising demands, and the pressure of being public figures led to another quiet separation in 2012. No messy headlines. No tabloid fodder. Just another quiet fracture behind a very public face. To the outside world, Dana Bash remains the picture of journalistic authority. But what people forget is that while she was covering election nights, she was also navigating custody arrangements. While moderating debates, she was texting babysitters. For every polished segment, there was a private moment of catching her breath, between emails, between flights, between heartbreaks. She's never made her personal struggles the center of the story, but they're there, woven into her timeline like watermarks. And maybe that's why she's such a compelling figure, because she's done what millions of women try to do, succeed in a world built for men while quietly surviving the chaos of real life. By the time Dana Bash made it to the anchor desk, she had already spent years watching how the news got made, not from a textbook or a YouTube tutorial, but from her own living room. She did not stumble into journalism, she was practically born into it. The sound of news tickers and heated political debates echoed from her own father's career. Stuart Schwartz was not just a dad with a regular job, he was a senior broadcast producer at ABC News, which made Dana's exposure to media less of a curiosity and more of a family tradition. While most kids grew up watching cartoons, Dana was absorbing election cycles. And while others were figuring out what they wanted to do, she already knew, she had been watching it unfold every night at dinner. Before Dana Bash became a household name in political journalism, she was already shaping the way Americans understood Washington. Her early work behind the scenes at CNN was not flashy, but it was strategic. She was not just booking guests or editing scripts, she was steering political coverage during some of the most turbulent moments in modern politics. From elections to legislative deadlocks, Bash became the go-to producer who could bring clarity to chaos. Her strength was not just in knowing how to follow a story. It was in knowing how to find the real story buried beneath layers of noise. This early instinct for nuance would become the backbone of her career long before she ever stepped in front of the camera. As Bash moved from the control room to the anchor chair, she brought with her an arsenal of experience. Her reporting was not built on teleprompters or flashy graphics, it was built on years of chasing down facts and cultivating sources. That transition from producer to on-air correspondent marked a new chapter, one where her calm delivery and sharp analysis could finally meet the public eye. It was not just a promotion. It was a full-circle moment. Now, she was not just shaping how stories were told, she was the one telling them. And she did it with a clarity that viewers appreciated, especially when the political landscape became too convoluted for most to follow. Dana Bash did not just appear during presidential election coverage, she became a staple of it. In the lead-up to the 2012 election, her reporting went beyond the headlines. She analyzed campaign strategies, decoded spin, and traveled alongside both parties, offering viewers an insider's look without the insider's bias. Her ability to balance fairness with tough questioning earned her respect from political players on both sides of the aisle. While others pushed for viral moments, Bash focused on depth. Her questions were pointed but never theatrical. Her tone was firm, never showy. Capitol Hill became one of her most covered beats, and not by accident. Her access to lawmakers came from years of built-up trust. Politicians knew she would not twist their words or sensationalize the moment. That access gave CNN something rare in modern coverage, actual insight into how laws were made, stalled, or buried in bureaucracy. Viewers saw it too. Her breakdowns of legislative maneuvers did not rely on drama. She simply laid out what was happening and why it mattered. And in an era of hot takes and overhyped analysis, her directness cut through the noise. As CNN expanded its political programming, Bash became one of its most visible and respected voices. Her frequent roles on Inside Politics and State of the Union were not just about being on air, they were about setting the tone. She brought balance to panels, asked the follow-up questions no one else dared to, and kept the conversations grounded. Her reporting style remained consistent, clear, factual, and unflinching. She did not chase headlines, she explained them. And that made her indispensable, especially during high-stakes coverage when the margin for error was razor-thin. Off-camera, Bash was juggling a level of pressure that mirrored her on-screen poise. Live debates, breaking news, political scandals, she navigated it all without losing composure. Colleagues often pointed out her calm in the chaos. Whether it was a mid-show script change or a heated guest exchange, she never let the moment shake her. This professionalism did not go unnoticed. Within CNN, she was seen as a stabilizing force, someone who could carry coverage when others faltered. In political circles, she was considered one of the rare journalists who could handle sensitive information without drama or ego. By the time Dana Bash became a lead figure in CNN's political coverage, her career was not just about being seen. It was about being trusted. Viewers did not tune in for spectacle, they tuned in for sense. And Bash gave them that, night after night. She built her authority slowly, not with viral moments or flashy scoops, but with a steady hand and a clear voice. In a media landscape desperate for attention, she stood out by not trying to stand out. And that, ironically, made her more visible than ever. Dana Bash's marriage to Jeremy Bash was not just another Washington love story, it was the kind of pairing that made headlines without even trying. When they married in 1998, it felt like two powerhouses merging from different corners of Washington's elite. Dana was climbing the ladder at CNN, becoming a respected voice in political journalism. Jeremy, a Harvard Law graduate with an eye for strategy, was quickly rising in national security circles. At the time, Jeremy Bash was still building what would become an impressive resume. He later served as chief of staff at both the CIA and the Department of Defense under the Obama administration. His work placed him deep inside the intelligence community, shaping defense policies and navigating global crises. Unlike Dana's camera-ready career, Jeremy's world unfolded behind closed doors, far from the newsroom lights but still very much in the national spotlight. Their relationship carried the kind of gravity that only comes from constant proximity to major decisions. While Dana reported on political power plays, Jeremy was part of them. It was not just dinner-table conversation, it was national security, foreign policy, and the inner workings of government, all intersecting in one household. Friends and colleagues saw them as a Washington power couple, a fusion of media insight and government muscle. Despite their public prominence, Dana and Jeremy managed to keep much of their personal life shielded from the constant noise of political gossip. There were no red carpet controversies or dramatic interviews, just two professionals navigating intense, demanding careers. Their marriage did not play out in headlines, but the toll of high-level pressure seemed to be lurking just beneath the surface. By 2007, the marriage had come to an end. The divorce came quietly, with little explanation offered by either side. Dana Bash, known for dissecting complex political situations on air, chose not to dissect her own personal story in public. There were no statements, no media appearances dissecting the breakup, only a shared understanding that sometimes, even the most aligned careers can pull people in different directions. The timing of their separation fell in line with a turning point in both of their careers. Dana was becoming a more prominent on-air presence at CNN, and Jeremy was moving deeper into the inner workings of the U.S. defense establishment. With both individuals chasing excellence in fields that demanded total focus, the end of their marriage did not read like a scandal, it read like reality. For Dana, the split did not slow her down. If anything, it seemed to sharpen her clarity and presence on screen. She continued building her reputation as one of CNN's most trusted political correspondents, often covering the very systems and figures her ex-husband once worked alongside. The separation may have closed one chapter of her life, but it never defined her. Instead, she kept moving forward, professionally polished, personally reserved, and fiercely focused. In 2020, Jeremy Bash found himself pulled back into public controversy, long after his divorce from Dana Bash. He was one of the former intelligence officials who signed a now infamous letter published by Politico, which questioned the legitimacy of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The letter suggested that the situation bore the familiar fingerprints of Russian disinformation, echoing concerns many in the intelligence community had grown accustomed to flagging over the years. But that statement did not age quietly. As more information surfaced and political narratives shifted, critics began to push back hard against the letter's framing. What started as a cautionary position from seasoned officials quickly became a lightning rod in the ongoing war between media, politics, and public trust. Jeremy's name, once known mostly in national security circles, was suddenly being tossed around on talk shows and social media feeds as part of a broader debate about misinformation, politics, and the media's role in both. Dana Bash, though clearly adjacent to the renewed attention, stayed silent. She made no public remarks about the letter or Jeremy's involvement in it. The two had long since separated, but the story reignited public interest in their past, as people naturally began to connect dots between the CNN anchor and her former husband now wrapped in controversy. While Dana's name trended by association, her posture remained unchanged, professional, composed, and quietly unbothered. Not long after, another chapter began, and this one came from within her own newsroom. Dana Bash's next relationship would be with someone already familiar to viewers and to her, fellow CNN journalist John King. On paper, it seemed inevitable. Two sharp political minds, both working under the same roof, caught in the same 24-hour news cycle. Their relationship quickly became public knowledge, but not in the sensational tabloid-fueled way. It was more of an open secret, a newsroom romance that unfolded quietly but was too high profile to be ignored. John, already a respected anchor at CNN, shared the same professional drive Dana was known for. In many ways, they mirrored each other, ambitious, composed, and deeply immersed in the ever-shifting world of American politics. Their relationship led to marriage, and for a while, they seemed to navigate the professional overlap without much issue. Still, being married to a coworker while both are reporting on politics around the clock is not exactly a low-stress dynamic. The expectations, the travel, the deadlines, it all added up. And once again, Dana found herself at the center of a personal moment unfolding under the shadow of her public career. Eventually, they too decided to separate. But much like her previous divorce, Dana did not turn it into a media circus. She maintained the same guarded, respectful silence she had with Jeremy. It was another quiet break in a very loud city. And like before, it did not slow her down. If anything, it reminded people that Dana Bash knows how to weather transitions without theatrics. Her ability to maintain focus, even when her personal life made the rounds in whispers and headlines, only strengthened her standing. In a world where many chase attention, Dana kept hers where it always was, on the story, not becoming one. Their relationship did not begin with fireworks or flashy headlines. It started with two seasoned journalists doing what they do best, covering Capitol Hill, chasing political stories, and crossing paths in the CNN newsroom more times than anyone could count. Dana Bash and John King were already fixtures in Washington reporting. Pairing them together almost felt inevitable to those watching from the sidelines. John King, already established as the host of Inside Politics, had long been a familiar face on TV screens. Dana, meanwhile, was steadily building her own reputation with sharp political reporting and on-the-ground coverage. It was not long before what started as a strong professional rapport quietly evolved into something more personal. The chemistry was noticeable, but never overbearing. They handled it like pros, no workplace public displays of affection, no rumors, just two journalists who happened to fall in love while covering the chaos of American politics. In 2008, the two tied the knot in a wedding that managed to stay mostly under the radar, at least by Washington standards. But there was one detail that did raise a few eyebrows in admiration. John King, who had been raised Roman Catholic, made the decision to convert to Judaism before marrying Dana. It was not a performative gesture, it was something he did quietly, without press releases or media fanfare. Those close to them saw it for what it was, a personal choice rooted in genuine respect for Dana's beliefs and the life they were building together. The conversion was not the kind of thing typically associated with political journalists, especially in a town where symbolism is everything and sincerity is often in short supply. But this move felt real. It also showed that, for all their public-facing work, Dana and John were not interested in performance. They valued meaning, not optics. Inside CNN, the couple quickly earned the unofficial title of power duo. They were both respected in their own lanes and rarely let their personal life bleed into their professional roles. According to colleagues, they made it a point to keep work at work and home at home. It is a boundary many struggle with, especially when both halves of a relationship live in the pressure cooker of round-the-clock news. But Dana and John seemed to manage it, at least for a while. In one of her few public comments about the relationship, Dana made it clear that their foundation started in the newsroom. They were colleagues before anything else. That dynamic shaped how they approached both their relationship and their work. It gave them a kind of mutual understanding that most people outside the business might not fully grasp. They knew the deadlines, the phone calls at midnight, the campaign trail chaos. And for a while, that understanding worked. Their relationship, while high-profile by nature, never turned into a media circus. Even as viewers speculated and the internet occasionally buzzed, the two kept things grounded. They did the work, told the stories, and managed to stay out of the gossip mill, a rare feat in cable news where cameras never stop rolling and personal details are often just one leaked memo away from becoming headlines. It was the kind of relationship that looked unshakable from the outside. Two political heavyweights balancing demanding careers, a newsroom romance that bloomed into marriage, and eventually, the arrival of their son, Jonah, in 2011. For a brief moment, it seemed like Dana Bash and John King had cracked the code on how to juggle parenthood and primetime politics. But even the most polished public lives carry private complications. With Jonah's birth, their already hectic routines took on an entirely new rhythm. The sleepless nights and non-stop schedules added pressure to an already high-intensity existence. They tried to hold it together. They showed up for broadcasts, for briefings, for each other. But somewhere in between the campaign trails and night feeds, the foundation quietly began to shift. By 2012, just a year after becoming parents, Dana and John made the difficult decision to separate. There were no headline-grabbing fights, no dramatic press releases, just a calm statement that reflected mutual respect and a desire to move forward with dignity. Dana, in her typically restrained style, described their relationship as one rooted in personal and professional admiration, past tense, but without bitterness. The real test came after the divorce. While most exes go their separate ways and get the luxury of never seeing each other again, Dana and John didn't have that option. CNN wasn't just their employer, it was also their shared stage. They had to master the art of coexistence under fluorescent lights, in front of millions of viewers, without letting personal history blur the lines of journalistic integrity. Somehow, they pulled it off. No awkward on-air moments, no behind-the-scenes gossip spilling into tabloids. They stayed professional, and more importantly, they stayed consistent. The occasional shared coverage didn't feel strained, and neither ever publicly deviated from the script of mutual respect. It wasn't performative, it was just what needed to be done. Their ability to manage a working relationship post-divorce, while raising their son and maintaining demanding schedules, became a quiet example of how to separate personal emotions from professional duty. There were no emotional monologues or dramatic exits. They showed up, did the work, and kept their private lives exactly that, private. If the split rattled Dana Bash privately, it never showed professionally. In fact, her career only accelerated. After parting ways with King, she doubled down on her role at CNN, taking on more prominent assignments and anchoring some of the network's most important political coverage. Whether it was interviewing presidential hopefuls or breaking down election night chaos, Dana's presence became one of the most trusted in the building. Her interviews sharpened, her analysis deepened, and her visibility increased. She didn't step back, she stepped up. Viewers noticed. Colleagues noticed. Even as her personal life shifted, she remained a steady force on screen. The fact that she could navigate a high-profile divorce while cementing her place as one of CNN's most recognized correspondents didn't just reflect work ethic, it showed resilience. The setbacks never defined her. If anything, they added a layer of credibility. She wasn't just reporting from Washington's political front lines, she was living her own version of professional survival. The balance between reporting on political chaos and managing personal transitions made her voice carry more weight, not less. There was no reinvention needed. Dana Bash didn't need a dramatic transformation or a public redemption arc. She simply kept going, unshaken, unbothered, and unrelenting in her work. And in a media landscape that feeds off spectacle, her steady approach became something rare, genuinely respected. Dana Bash never led with her personal life. If anything, she kept it parked somewhere quietly off-screen while her journalism took center stage. The narrative she stuck to, both publicly and professionally, was simple: work came first, always. When asked about her private struggles, she didn't dwell on them. She made it clear that while her personal life had its fair share of turbulence, the newsroom remained her place of focus and control. That quiet strength wasn't just lip service, it showed. Even as CNN waded through its own evolution, shifting formats, leadership changes, and a fast-moving news cycle, Bash kept her footing. While others bent under the pressure of politics and ratings, she sharpened her tone, asked better questions, and stayed consistent. It wasn't just about keeping her job, it was about staying relevant in a space where relevance can vanish overnight. What many didn't see on air was the second full-time role Bash managed behind the scenes, being a mom. After the end of her marriage with John King, parenting became her anchor. Her son Jonah wasn't just part of her life, he was the center of it. And yet, that never meant stepping away from work. Somehow, she balanced both, in a way that looked seamless but surely wasn't. There were the late-night edits, the cross-country flights, the press junkets that never waited for a school calendar. And yet, by the time the lights were on in the studio, she was composed, informed, and completely in control. The chaos stayed off camera. She once reflected that her son was what grounded her, not the headlines, not the interviews, not the praise. Just motherhood, quiet and constant. Dana Bash didn't need to shout to be heard. In a media environment where emotion often substitutes for clarity, she made calm look radical. Her reporting style stood out because it didn't lean into performance. It relied on facts, timing, and patience. That patience became her signature, especially in an era where political journalism often looks like a contact sport. Colleagues described her as one of the most even-keeled people in the business. While others flared up during interviews or chased viral clips, Bash remained steady. Viewers noticed. Politicians noticed. And in a landscape where trust in media wavers with every cycle, Bash earned something more valuable than attention: credibility. After years of silence, Dana's honesty shows that even the most poised public figures carry private pain. Her story reminds us that personal decisions, especially ones made under pressure, are rarely black and white. So what do you think? Was it inevitable? Could anything have saved the marriage? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.